All right, beloveds. Hello, 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 my sacred soul family, my beloveds. I am with one of my favorite beings on the planet. Such a juicy, divine, beautiful beloved, one of my sacred soul sisters, divine besties, allies of light. So I'm so blessed to have such beautiful souls that I can be like, hey, beloved, with your gifts, can you come share with my peeps and my tribe? Because Jodie's information. This is the beautiful Jodie Louise, my loves. And she is a women's health guide, but she's so, I mean, she's also, we definitely want to say that for any men that are watching, it doesn't mean that this message isn't for you, because this is so beautiful to what we're going to be diving into, and like the natural cycles of our life and the cycles of our flow and how to live with this. It's like for all of us to know how we are designed and built and operate, and for men as well to know how women in their lives operate in these cycles. And Jodie has the little joke where it's always like you're dating four different women in a month if you're dating a woman. So however that looks, we're four different individuals in this. And so this is kind of giving you guys an idea of where we're going, is that we're going into tuning into our natural cycles and our cycles with life. And I just want to say this information, this understanding made such a huge it's like a huge difference for me. And it really was Jodie who was my guide as a dear beloved friend. And I was asking her questions about things and tuning into different layers of my health journey. She's not only been like, she's a fucking detox expert. She is such a wise soul with so many aspects. She's such a master at many things. But what she's really found passion and joy in is serving women right now in knowing this truth, and men in understanding this as well about the women in their lives. And so as I, had really good friends with Jodie, and she started to share with me this, I went to you did a one day in person like course event experience where I got to go and like really dive into all the information. I was like, it was just so good, and how it influenced my life. So in a lot of what I teach is like, how every day is this different variation. And it just like the understanding that you gave just clicked that in even more, that it was like, oh, I see why creation happens the way that it does. And we're meant to like work with ourselves. So my loves, we've got this beautiful beloved being here because she's just such sharing so much glorious information with the world, and also just such a good friend of mine to be able to be here and share. So I feel so grateful to have you, my sweet sister. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll kind of like maybe I would love you to share a bit more about your journey if you want to, like just like kind of what brought you to this, and anything that you want to share so that people can get an idea of why Jodie, why are you doing this stuff, and how it all came to be.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It feels so good to be here. I just love you so much. And yeah, it's beautiful to rise together on this path and to share this wisdom. And
Yes.
yeah, so a little bit about me and my journey and how I found this path of understanding the cycles of being a woman was because I did it all of the wrong ways. And now that I look back, I'm like, that makes sense and that makes sense. And I had to go through all of those things to get to where I am now. But I tried all the different diets, all the different fasts. And then one day someone said to me that 95% of research is done on men. And I was like, okay. But they said it to me like, yeah. And I thought, okay, what does that mean? And I started to investigate that and realize why they only do 95% of research on men. And it's because women's hormones are changing every single day, but men's aren't. It's the same. They're on a 24-hour clock, and we're on a different system altogether. It's the infradian rhythm. So we all have the circadian rhythm, but women have also the infradian rhythm, which is in line with the moon. And when I realized that every day our hormones are different, and that's why they don't test on women, I thought, okay, that's why men are thriving on that detox or that diet and women aren't. And that's why it's not been working for me. And I would look at, for a while, I was fruitarian, for example, and I was looking at the men and their skin was glowing, and then the women were getting older and they were getting wrinkles. And I don't understand why. And I kept asking the question of my mentors, and no one could really tell me why. I was told it wasn't normal for women to have their periods and just all these different things. And I went down a rabbit hole. And it was the biggest aha moment for me. I was just like, wow. So that's what guided me onto this path of sharing women's health and how we're cyclical beings. It's fascinating. And when we know it's a superpower, such a gift. like even for you, now that you know this, you can plan the best time to do like a presentation, like a video, a workshop, versus the time to go within and plan. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So.
Like it just gave me more understanding as to like, oh, I'm in this cycle. I had more awareness about what this cycle, what's happening with my body in this cycle, because it's like life is happening. And yes, sometimes I'm called to do things. And yet it was like, okay, I know when I'm in this cycle, my energy is going down. And then I know after I hit like my period and ovulation, then it's like, oh, I'm going to be filled with energy. And that's the best time to create. And just like being more aware to work with it more fully, and then not be like, why am I feeling, less energy? Oh, I'm actually like honoring, oh, this is a cycle I'm going into, be more aware of this. How do I take care of myself more with the different phases of eating and all the different things? So yeah, it made a huge difference for me. And I love that you brought up the, I call this I feel like this is a debunking of a myth or a story that gets to happen that will serve and support all of us. Because in this, for men and women, there's the harmonization of the feminine and masculine. I really feel like the information you're delivering also is a gift of us coming into harmonization of our masculine and feminine, like our bodies, how they're created, how we work in flow with the feminine, as well as the structure of the masculine. Even this is like, hey, there's these phases, these structures that your system's going through. And when you had told me that about all the research, basically 95% of research done on men and everything, it's like, and that their cycle is from 9 to 5. It's basically the same every day. They get up and they have the same hormonal cycle, and it's like work, strive, go do the thing, and then at nighttime is when they're ready to go down, and it's like that's what they experience every day. And where we started these programs of every day I need to get up and be productive and do these things, and I should be accomplishing, and it should look like this, and that's what our programming has come from, the everyday, coming from this masculine structure, which isn't even how we're designed to operate, which was, to me, was like, oh, no wonder that's never really, it's not in flow with us in creation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I feel for me, it's a constant coming back, because everything you read, everyone you speak to, it is this masculine approach to doing everything. And the women that I know that are really embodying this lifestyle, they work less, but they get way more done, because they know when to optimize their cycle. And it's just a couple of days of the month where they've really got the energy. And then the rest are in like an incubator, and they're coming up with the ideas, and they're in their wise woman energy, and then they come out and they're like, wow. And it's really in alignment, because they know they're working with that flow. And that's why back they used to do ceremonies, and when a woman was on her cycle, they do like red tents and all different things, and the women would be taken away from the tribe. And it wasn't done it in a bad way, it was done in a way because that's when they were most connected. And they understood this, but this wisdom is really being lost. And as soon as we start to work in that way, like if organizations started to know when a woman was ovulating versus when she's in her luteal phase, knowing where her mind and her mind power is going to be stronger, because in her luteal phase, both sides of the brain are working much more clearer, and she's able to make decisions better. But then when she's ovulating, she's going to be more appealing. Her throat chakra is going to be open. She's going to be better at communicating. And if organizations only knew this, they'd be thriving. And if all the women out there, sharing their work as well. So
yeah, beautiful, my love. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So now that like people, I'm sure, like what like what phase? What is this? What is that? Maybe you can share some of your wisdom around what are we? What is our natural cycle and design? And as much as you want to share on like how we tell what our energy is going to be, our creation, any shifts with food or feelings or any of the insights to know how do we navigate these different cycles that we're going through.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll try and give a simple version to start, and then we can maybe go into it a little bit more, because our cycle impacts how we eat, how we exercise, different times, even like our sex life, socializing, even our beauty routine can all be connected. And when we understand what's happening, we can really craft our life around that. But just speak firstly about the different phases. So day 1 of a woman's cycle is the first day that she bleeds. And that's her menstrual cycle, and that can be anywhere from 3 to 7 days. And in this phase, it's like a woman's winter. It's really a time where she's in her wise woman, time to go within, and really slow down, really nourishing, and not be out in the wide world, because it can be really kind of overwhelming. And then from here, day by day, the estrogen starts to rise. And most women, anywhere from day 3 to 7, they'll be like, oh, I'm back. And a lot of people don't understand why that is. They're like, why am I constantly changing? But it's because the estrogen is rising, and it's literally going up like this. And it goes all the way to ovulation. And ovulation is a very split moment in time when the egg actually drops down. And at this time is when you're just feeling full of energy, full of life. It's because in that phase, you're preparing for the egg to drop. So you're going to be naturally more flirty and looking for a mate. And that's why the communication skills get better. We actually become more symmetrical. We have more collagen in our skin, which is more vibrant. And it's really fascinating. They've done so many studies on this to prove that this is a thing. For example, showing a photo of a woman looking exactly the same when she's ovulating versus when she's on like her period or a luteal phase, and people choose the photograph when she's ovulating.
Wow.
And it's just, you can barely tell. And it's fascinating. They've even done a study where they had 2 identical twins. One was ovulating and one wasn't, and they kept bringing them in and out of a room. They were dressed up pretending to be a nurse, and they would even test the heart rate of these men, and their heart rate would go up around the ovulating woman. So it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's interesting if you think about even always what you're vibrating, right? And even knowing like this is like the phase when I'm vibrating. This is the most powerful time for me to create this, to launch this, to share this, to do this, right? And that there's even more of your vibration aligned to that.
Definitely, yeah, it's the most powerful time. So
yeah,
and then from here, ovulation, you're feeling really good, you're full of energy. And then you start to go into the luteal phase, and that's when the estrogen starts to go down. And then there's another hormone that's coming in, which is called progesterone, which is a sedating hormone, which is there to prevent the uterus from cramping. And a lot of the time when women are getting cramps at that phase, it's because they might not have enough progesterone. But this is a phase where you're starting to feel like slower, needing to slow down. And just often women at this phase, it's called the PMS phase, which I don't like to refer to PMS as something that is normal. That's why I call it the luteal phase, because PMS actually isn't normal. It's just very common. But it's not.
What you say is when you're saying PMS, what people think that is, that you're saying we've decided is normal, like these side effects that we've decided is normal, that you're saying actually isn't really normal with your system.
Yeah, I mean, being really, really, really moody, breast tenderness, getting pimples, breakouts, bloating, puffiness. These things happen, but a lot of people just have accepted, well, that's just what happens to me as a woman. But when we actually learn to work with our cycle, it becomes a lot less. It's so sometimes we will feel lower, but it's usually because that estrogen's been really peaking, and when it drops down, we feel we're noticing our difference. But like when we realize what's actually going on in the body, you'd be like, well, I know I'm in my luteal phase. I know my estrogen's just dropped down, and we are not our hormones. Ultimately, we aren't 4 different women. Our hormones are. And then we can step back and kind of observe the movie that's going on in that. It's like a movie, Oh, I see. I'm in my luteal phase right now.
Like wholeness to our human. My wholeness is observing what my human's experiencing, and okay.
Exactly. They're communicator messengers in the body. That's what hormones are. So when we know that they're just doing their thing, and the reason that happens is we're designed to create life every single month. And that's pretty awesome. Like our bodies are continually trying to make life. And when we can appreciate that that's actually going on in our body, we can have a lot more compassion for ourselves. And that's what I'm constantly coming into. Like, wow, my baby right now thinks it could be pregnant. That's what the luteal phase is. And this is our longest phase. It can be up to 14 days of the month. So it's really good to know how to be comfortable in that time, And if you feel like resting and you don't feel like going out, you don't feel like going to the gym, don't. Because at this phase, usually at the beginning of the luteal phase, we still have some energy, but that week before our period, if we're pushing, this was one of the biggest game changers for me, actually, was that I learned that if I'm pushing and exercising at this phase, I can actually gain more weight because the body can go into like fight or fight, or
hold on, protect, right? Yeah.
Protecting. I could be pregnant. But also if you're fasting at this time of your cycle, and I used to do 30-day juice cleanses and things like this, and wonder why I wasn't getting results. So yeah, that's a little kind of summary of the different phases. But we could go into talking about nutrition.
One more phase after the luteal phase, right before you go into your period.
No,
right?
So there's just 4. So there's menstrual, follicular, ovulation, and luteal.
Got it. Yes. I knew there was 4, but I don't know that we spoke to the words of follicular, but you were saying those different phases. So yeah. So why do you feel like this is important for men and women? I feel like there's so many connections to this beyond just, like, oh, okay, I have an understanding of I'll be lower energy now, or I'm more activated. I even noticed when you brought this attention to me that like I'd be out on my scooter and be like, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, and then like other times when I brought awareness to it, where I was like in that, the luteal phase was just like more like soft and protection and and I was like, oh, it like so influences, it's like the adrenaline and the just the creation and the mode, it's like taking more risks and all these different things. It was really powerful for me to see how they were connecting to these different phases. So
definitely. I mean, I'm dating right now, and anyone that I'm kind of exploring a date with, I'm like, I need to know them for the full 30 days.
Yeah.
Cycle, right? Are they going to like me at every phase, and am I going to like them? Because it changes. We'll actually be attracted to different people. So this is a really good way of helping, like, why men need to understand this too. And we are constantly changing. And I think if a man can understand where we're at, he might not take us so personally, but also know how to support us. One of the favorite things I love to share with men is, when a woman's ovulating, it's a really great time to try a new sex position, for example, and by studying that cycle and understanding, around a woman, like before she gets a period, she might not want you to touch her, or there's maybe a more like delicate way of approaching, So I think that's one of the greatest importances of men, understanding that we are constantly changing, and by him understanding that, and women, we can empower our partners to understand by communicating with him and saying, hey, this is where I'm at, and at this phase of my cycle, I notice that I'm more sensitive, and what I really would love from you is more physical touch, and maybe sometimes like making me a cup of tea and asking for what we need in an empowered way. Because a lot of the time, women are just crabby and cranky, and they blame it. They're like, well, I've just got PMS, so I'm allowed to be this way. And for me, I think, that's not really fair. We need to take ownership of where we're at and say, I'm in my luteal phase, and I feel grumpy today, and I feel sad. And
I feel like it's so powerful to, the more that I studied and I became a priestess and a swami, I remember so much of the ancient codes of wisdom of coming through around these portals around the womb, and womb consciousness being activated, and literally like the remembrance of like whenever a woman was on her cycle, literally like bleeding freely, like they'd walk through, again, the tribe would honor it as like, wow, like the sacred magical portal is open, and there's, magic to be had here. And it was so honored. We've come a very long ways from that, shaming, blaming, hiding the period to, again, just like push through, not acknowledge it. And I think I want to bring some attention to is, when I operated more without that understanding of this sacred portal that happens, and the sacred cycles that we go through, and how it's designed in our systems to be like magical beings of creation to then recalibration, and it's literally designed to support us in all of it, to like rest and recalibrate and collect the ideas and be internal and go in, and then to be able to express it and birth it and create to the world, etc. And I'm like, I've had this conversation with many women, and I wonder what your experience is as well. And for everyone to kind of tune into their experiences, I remember like, I was never really affected by my period, but I always saw it as like, I don't buy into the story of PMS, and, it doesn't have to affect me in any way. And I'd witnessed women that were, and always thought it was kind of like, Yeah, just like I just didn't really relate to it, I guess, like you could say, or in a way, maybe I even kind of judged it, like, oh, that's just something you buy into. I see how I was disconnected from my period, because the more that I became conscious and the more that I became awakened to energy and all that was available, my womb cycles I started to really feel. Like I experienced them very differently. Like now I can tap in and feel the moon portals open. Like even if I'm not looking at a calendar, knowing when I'm like, I feel the 2 days before, the 2 days after the moon portals open, and I feel my connection to the cycle of all things. So when I would then have my moon cycle, it was like, it was a whole other experience. Sometimes of like, I get to go within, and there was times when I just got to like, felt super tender and soft and could feel, and it was like, I'm going in my moon. And all my sisters that are so connected to this, like one of my besties, she's always like, I feel it coming, the moon cycle coming. And, she's like, I'm going to be in my portal. Like I'll be in my little space for this. And then, after it's like such a birthing of creation. And I know you're the same. You're always very aware of like when the moon cycle is coming, and, so being aware of like the tenderness, the softness, allowing the support for that space and the birthing. And you're just so aware of it. And so I see myself as so much more, over the years have been in so much more experience. Like I'm like here to fully experience this portal and this activation and what's here for me in this every single time, where before my body didn't really have like any experience like that, of that, because it wasn't connected to it. And so I think there's some also wisdom here in the more that we actually open ourselves, the more we are working with these magic portals, our womb portal, our cycles that we get to go through to allow and support us. And that's how it can be. You do less, create more. Less effort, receive so much more. Because again, we're receiving the feminine cycles that are there. And in the kind of like the containers, the sacred masculine containers of like, this cycle is for this purpose to serve me, and this cycle is for this purpose to serve me, and how can I utilize that to birth something new? So I wonder what your experience has been, or if you have worked with women who maybe on you said PMS or symptoms on one side, where it can be shifted, where it doesn't have to be this idea of any struggle or suffering, but also how you activate and awaken to it to let it ultimately serve you.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful topic actually to talk about. And I think one of the first things that happened to me when I started following cycle mapping and tracking my cycle was, well, I'm in my luteal phase, so this is how I feel. And when I'm on my ovulation phase, this is how I feel. And I did take a lot of it for like, this is how I am. And I think I started to shift and change based on what information was telling me. And then I actually started tracking my own cycle, as opposed to this is where I should be, and working out where I fit in within that. And I think that is one dangerous trap with any of these tools, is that we can just buy into, well, that's where I'm at. And we do lose that disconnection from the body, So I'm anyone that's really interested in exploring this, I recommend finding out, okay, what is the luteal phase? What is the follicular phase? And understanding what's going on, but then taking a step back and then working out what actually happens for you, because we're all different. We all have different hormones, and it's so important to really connect deeply to that. Because if you had 10 women in a room, 12, 30, 50, every woman would describe feeling different things at that phase of the cycle. So we're, as much as it's a guide, and to know that maybe I'll feel more sensitive, or maybe you won't as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And it took me, I didn't get my cycle for 9 months after intense detoxing. And it was at that point that kind of sacred connection to my womb came in. I was on a like goddess retreat in Ibiza, and I remember sitting around and everyone talking about their moon cycles, and I started hearing all of this wisdom, and I was like, wow, that's why I've been feeling so disconnected, because I wasn't ovulating, I wasn't going through these cycles. And it's probably a really good time to talk about the contraceptive pill for anyone that's on the contraceptive pill, because when you're on the contraceptive pill, you're actually permanently in the luteal phase. The body thinks it's pregnant. So you're not going through these cycles as a woman. So you're actually not able to access these superpowers in the same way.
When you're on birth control or contraceptives, right? Yes.
Yes, the birth control. Yeah, when you're on that. And women, a lot of the time, they come off birth control. They'll be attracted to different men. They'll be feeling different feelings, and they'll be like, I feel alive again. But it's, usually a huge dip before they get to that, which can be really intense.
Kind of reharmonizing the body and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you brought that, because again, there's importance in, we always get to question everything for ourselves, because I remember testing this out for myself as you know, I learned from you and like started tracking more, and that one was like, okay, like I could I love the idea that it's like, this is a possibility, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be there for you. Just like anyone can experience anything on their moon cycle, and you know, it for each person it's different, but just to take the awareness. And so if anything, it's more giving the conscious permission slip to be fully aware for yourself of what you're feeling, what is in the highest alignment for you, what is the most nourishing for your soul. And many of my beloveds know that I teach that I'm like, every day is meant to be different. Like, we're here just to flow and play. And you're such a beautiful example of that as well. And I love, like, even in our relationship where like we can have plans and be like, the last minute be like, you know what, lover, I'm just not really feeling aligned to this. And like, I get to flow here. I'm feeling more like I just want to stay. And you know, we were going to see each other. I think you were going to be out here. What was it, like a week ago or something? And we were, you know, to go to a big dance thing and whatever. And you stay, and it was like, we're both starting to feel. And I was like, you know, I actually don't feel like I feel like going to that. And then you ended up being like, I'm actually feeling like I'm not feeling like leaving at all. I'm just staying. And it's like, we just honor whatever feels of the highest alignment for us. But it's really a permission slip to always tune into yourself of what's the most nourishing for your soul, what your body is telling you and guiding you to. And then also knowing like we are actually changing every single day with our hormones and with, you know, of course, our beautiful, and think about how that even connects to like the beautiful experiences that we have always for us to be able to witness, like if we were always in the same thing. So is there anything else around that you feel like is an important message for people to kind of observe and take in?
I mean, I really love what you just shared about, you know, you and I supporting each other in that moment. And I feel like in, you know, all of our connections, whether you're a man or a woman, understanding where a woman's at in her cycle can be really profound. And I often ask my friends, where are you at in your cycle today? So I can be like, oh, she's in her luteal phase. She might be feeling a little bit more frustrated and tender. And that supports me to understand, to support. So I really liked how you just touched on that just then. And it's a really great experiment to do, is to talk about this with your friends and to ask them where they're at. And just be accepting of it. And no, again, there's no, we don't need to create suffering around any attachment stories. Just honor everyone and whatever they're in. Two questions are coming. One, I kind of want to see if you can share a bit more about how, like, if there's any information you want to share on like food or different things in the cycles. But I'm also getting like, what about women who have already gone through menopause and where it doesn't really apply? Like, is there more awareness for them in their cycles if they're not going through that same womb cycle? Yeah, definitely. And this has been the perimenopause and menopause has recently been coming more and more on my radar. I'm becoming very, very, very interested in it. So I remember when my mum was going through it, I was like, why is she sweating all the time? And why is she so moody? And I just didn't understand what was going on. And for a woman, when she's in that phase, her estrogen is just literally going like this. And there are phases where she feels really, really good. And there's phases where she's constantly in that luteal phase. And it's very much a journey into becoming a wise woman, because women never used to live past 50. You know, this is a new thing. So we are having a lot more wise elders. It's like a new era of women that are on the earth right now. And anytime I meet a wiser woman, I have so much respect, you know, for them moving into that new phase. And I think it's important for those that aren't already in that phase, when they know someone is, you know, anywhere, like anyone that's 50 plus is probably going to be going through menopause at some point, or they probably already started. It can start anytime from 45 it can begin. But I don't like to say numbers and ages, otherwise people can be like, oh, I'm 45, I'm going into perimenopause, and that might not be the case at all. You might still be very fertile, you know. So it's good to not sink into any of these labels at all, but it's good to have that awareness. But in this moment in time, like I'm still learning about menopause, and there's not a lot of information out there, and that's something that I'm more and more kind of weaving and encouraging to be out there more. So it's more just, would you say the advice is just like with all of this, it's like tune into yourself every day? I think
all of us, it just teaches us each to tune into ourselves every single day, to follow what our body requires, to follow our spirit, to follow our guidance, to follow the energy, to listen to what we require. Because it's funny, because I was actually on a podcast this morning, someone that was interviewing me, and we were talking about transmuting trauma, and even just like in these ideas of like, oh, I've got to accomplish this today, etc. And how she had said how she just kept like, couldn't fucking do anything. And then the moment she went through the cycle, she's actually been in my programs, is like leaned in and transmuted this stuff, that then it's like she felt this like openness and this, this creation ability, and was able to do the thing that she required to do in 10 minutes that she'd been taking weeks struggling to do. And it's like, again, because when we follow the energy and just give to ourselves, but we let go of this idea of it should look this way. And again, so every day I need to accomplish this, or it has to be this path, or programs or stories, then it's so easy, right? It's so easy when we go, okay, I'm relaxing into my recalibration phase, and I'm giving myself permission to do that. And I'm actually now communicating with all the energetic field that I am worthy to just fucking relax. Mm-hmm. And I am worthy to just fully be here. And it does so much more than, trying to fight what we're feeling and what phase we're really in. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime there's a should, I feel it's
shooting all over myself.
Yeah, any shoulds, it's good to tune in. Why am I saying that? Maybe I shouldn't. Yeah.
Let me question that for sure. Yeah. So is there anything you want to share around, because I know you also teach very deeply, and again, all beloveds, if you want to go really deeper into this, because I learned a lot from Jodie, from not only her being a really dear friend, as I was getting curious at different layers of next level detox and thing, and she was teaching with me, like, and sharing, like being aware of these phases and how our body's reacting, and when detox really is good for your system, and intermittent fasting, and when we actually get to support our system, and just help me evolve that even more. And you also taught a deep level, and do teach a deep level of what your body wants, like food wise, and the shifting of that. Is there anything you want to share around that as you're kind of teaching this on the cycles?
Yeah, a lot. This is where
This is a whole other course, Marci. I know. Like, what can you give us here? Like, allow us to.
I mean, the most fascinating thing is how the digestive system changes as a woman. And as someone that struggled with severe constipation and gas and issues my whole life, it was when I understood my cycle, I was like, oh my God, wow, it makes sense, So what's happening is in your cycle, so when you're in your follicular phase, you are actually less hungry. So it's a really good time to fast, and your metabolism goes down. Mm-hmm. But your digestive system goes up. So what that means is you're not going to be as hungry, because the body is using stored fat for energy, but your digestive system is a lot more powerful, so you can actually eat more raw foods. Mm-hmm. But then as you go into your luteal phase, everything switches, which is fascinating. So you go up and you go down, and everything goes back to front, and your metabolism goes up. So that's why you're more hungry. And a lot of people are like, but last week I wasn't hungry, and now I want to eat everything. There's a reason for that. Yeah. But your digestive system goes down. So a lot of the time in this phase, women say, I'm constipated, I can't go to the toilet. That's why that's going on. And then as soon as they get their period, they're like, woohoo, I go to the toilet again. And that's because things are shifting in the body, and it just allows that to happen. So that was, for me, was a big game changer. And that's why it's so important to eat different foods at different phases of the cycle. Yeah. And that's why, so if you do, I mentioned briefly before, but if you do a juice cleanse in the luteal phase, which is the phase just before your period, what's going to happen is your body is going to store everything, because it needs fat, it needs nutrients. And it's also a time where it's more important to balance blood sugar. So if you're smashing down the juices and eating all this fruit, it's just not going to work for the body. Yeah. And it's not to say that you can't detox with your cycle, but it's just understanding the different foods that work better.
Yeah. That was big. I remember, because I'm such a big proponent of fasting and feasty fasting. I call it feasting as well as the intermittent fasting. And just like knowing there's times when I'm listening to my body, again, I was like always taking it by what my body calls for. And it made more sense to me as like, oh, there's times where it's like, so fucking easy to fast. I'm not even hungry at all. And I could fast with ease and grace. And other times I associate it to my little girl being like, I do not want to fast right now. Okay. And I'm like, oh, that's that phase. Yeah. Like, this is not the time. This does not feel good to my body. And I was like, wow, it's opposite. I'm like hungry by like 10 a.m. and I'm used to not eating till way later, you know? And it was just like connecting the dots for me. Allowed it to be more like not a guessing game. And, you know, because it was like follow my body, but also, oh, there's also a system that my body's going through. So I know that made a big impact for me as well, as to understanding that. And like you said, like using specific juices or different things in fasting that were then jacking up my blood sugars when it was like, that was not the time for that, you know, and like, oh, connecting the dots. So it's super powerful. And I know you've got, you know, maybe we'll see what we can share with people. I know you've got like I used your tracker where it's like, had like the phase, you know, and so it's like food might be this, energy might be this, etc. So it's like, okay. And just trying, as I got more and more familiar with it, you know, but again, always checking in every single day. But that was really, really helpful as well. All the things that you've designed and kind of set to start to just become more aware of yourself. This is just really another layer of our understanding, like of our devotion to our divinity. And, you know that I teach a plethora of things, but not being in my programs or groups, I don't know, but there's like, you know, gene keys. We both geek out on gene keys, you know, it's like gene keys and this and that. And we're like all these discovery pieces of ourselves and our divine blueprint. And I felt like this was just another piece that's not talked about a lot. I actually had studied years before, like a minor little bit about, but I didn't really see that. I didn't get it. I didn't get the importance of it. And it was like, okay, I could track my moon cycle and but I didn't really get it. And now I feel like from having my connection with you and going through those things, I was like, oh, it just connected at such a deeper level of like, no wonder every day is meant to be different. No wonder there's, you know, some of these aspects of ourselves that help us really kind of connect to our understanding and our flow with life, our cycle, our flow with our creation, all those things, so much more. So I really appreciate and honor like your journey and all that you do. And you are such a master. If you guys dive into Jodie's world, she is a master of so many things. And if you ever saw our spoof video, Jodie filmed that. Jodie was like the producer of that. She also did for years, obviously was behind the scenes with interviewing high level people in Ibiza and, you know, in journalism and filming stuff. And, you know, on her journey before she really dove into helping more women in, you know, your play and detoxing and health in the body. And also, love, you just like got to share a little bit, but I know you have overcome, it was your journey. You overcame so much with the body, you know, and being able to come into like peace with the body and teaching so many people how to do that. So I really want to, you know, honor you and all that too. You're definitely a Jedi master, but the Jodie was the one who literally directed and was by my side as we like did all that filming, and she did the filming. And so she created that whole fun spoof video that we got a lot of likes and a lot of hates for. Triggered a lot of things in a lot of people, but one of my favorite memories for sure.
So fun. I really love creating that with you.
Yeah.
And even when we were filming that, there were moments that we noticed were better than others based on where you're at in your cycle. Do you remember?
Yeah, totally.
And even for me filming it, like I'm like, why am I so tired today? And the other time we had so much energy. And you could probably go back and watch, because we didn't do it all in the same day. And you could
it was very different times. Yeah. I remember the first day, because we had the first even filming, and I was like, we had the script and these lines, and I remember I was like one line, I'm like, I was like, I don't know why my brain is just not wanting to take this line. You know, it was just like, oh, I'm in this phase, and here we're like doing this thing, and it made so much more fun and sense and play with all of it. So yeah, it's really hilarious. It's really hilarious for sure. So what would you say is then maybe what would be tools or things that people could implement? You mentioned starting to track their cycle is a good way to start to kind of have more sense of it. Is there any other things that you feel like are good starting points for people to begin to implement if they haven't really connected to this, or even if they have, like what else they can do to support them in really harmonizing with this?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest the best ways to start connecting with the body is obviously journaling, or even getting one of the apps. There's an app called Clue and an app called My Flow, and these at least help you to start to identify, like, what day am I on? Because I never even used to work out, like, what day of my cycle am I on? What phase am I in? And even that can be quite overwhelming at the beginning. So it's really good to take it slow and not get overwhelmed by this, like, you need to understand everything and, oh no, I can't eat that phase of the cycle. That's not what we want to do here. We just want to gently create awareness, and it's not about changing your entire life. Because I know for me, when I first found it, it was really difficult for me to break free from, I was in the detox world heavily, and I was pretty much just living off fruit juice and raw salads. And when people were like, you need to eat some cooked foods at this phase of your cycle, it was really difficult for me. And I realized I was really kind of in that. So depending how people are eating right now, it's really important to, I guess, take this slowly and not feel like you have to change everything, because you might not even need to change your diet. It could just be on an emotional level, understanding where you're at, So definitely one of the tracking apps, or keeping a journal and being like, okay, today I'm on day 1, I feel like this, and starting to compare and just become familiar with your cycle, because this is your cycle. It's different for everyone. And also speaking to sisters about our cycles, and just asking them where they're at, asking them how they're feeling. And we don't talk about this stuff more than it, like, we just don't. Like, most women will be like, I've got my period. But they don't say, hey, I'm ovulating today, I feel amazing. I'm driving my scooter really fast, I feel on top of the world,
Yeah, I do get messages from you where you're like, you always tell me what cycle you're in and like what's happening, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, and I do that because it brings the awareness, and the more we talk about this, the more this will be normal wisdom. I wish that, I'm sure some of the people watching this are still working in 9 to 5 office jobs, perhaps, I don't know. And if they are, I knew that when I felt sick on my period, I wouldn't say I have my period, I'd say I feel sick. I didn't feel comfortable to share that. I felt like people would think I'm dirty or it's gross. And I think the more that we can start to talk about this, at least with other women, over time, this will become, more of a normal thing. And I think at some point it will be celebrated, and organizations will ask their staff, but it takes us really stepping up and talking about it for that to happen.
Yeah, thank you for being a proponent of that. And I do envision, with the new earth, just like having these remembrances of these very many lifetimes, and activating womb consciousness in these codes, and seeing that, like, wow, this portal, this sacred moon, it became such a different, literally a magic portal. And, even when it shows up and I'm called to do things, I'm like, of course, this is also the portal that's open up. There's been many times I've run events, not even planning, again, that was always, I've like, okay, I'm going to plan this, that I wouldn't be on my period, and then things would shift and change. And that can also be important, is like seeing where our hormones are at, and like, why our cycles might be off, and kind of aligning to some of these different things. I know you teach that as well, but it was for me, again, wow, this is such a sacred, magical portal. And I do see new earth as in, again, we're so aware of all of our mystical. It's not just the human, it's also the mystical. It's all aspects of ourselves. And I do go to this women's singing group called Singing Pussies. And at the end of each time that we sing, the women that are on their moon cycle all lay on the floor, and we surround them and we touch them. We either rub their feet or, just stroke them, and we sing these sacred songs just to like honor them in that portal. And it's like, it is so nourishing. It was like last time, I think it was the first time I was actually on my moon cycle that I was, in that environment, and to lay there and to receive that. And I was like, oh, of course. You show up in that phase and it's like, oh, I'm feeling kind of this. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to honor and witness that. And each phase that we're in of just, it's like this sacred portal of creation and recalibration, and just this beautiful sacred thing. So, I really, I appreciate these conversations and talking to all these things that we're like, this is all aspects of ourselves. Why wouldn't we share it? Why wouldn't we talk about it? Why wouldn't we be it all? I know, like, you talk about poop all the time and all the things. Yeah. Like, it's like, you're like, why wouldn't we talk about this? Like, what comes out of our bodies, and, like the detox phase and just all the things. So it's like, I so appreciate, beloved, you being a proponent for this, your journey, and just the stand for this and sharing all these things. And there's one question coming up there around, because I mentioned hormones, is there anything around Because I know if we experience where our cycles are off, usually that's a symbol of like, oh, my hormones must be off. I know that's what I was kind of starting to experience when I was like asked you. I was like, beloved, this is what I'm noticing, and I'm getting curious. And then you filled me in on so much information and guided me, and then I went to your class and all that, and was like, oh, that's how my hormones have gotten off. And what do I get to do to reconnect with that and support that? Is there anything around this as well that is it that can be awareness of where we're kind of off that we don't recognize, and how we bring ourselves back on or support ourselves fully?
Yeah, I mean, the hormones, they're messengers. Yeah. So if something's not right in the body, you're going to know about it. And, usually it's stemming from something to do with something emotional going on in our life, a trauma, that's something that happens. I know when I go through traumatic incidents, my hormones go out of balance, and it's there to show me and remind me, you need to really honor me right now. That's my body talking. And anything that ever comes up in our body is always there to communicate something to us, for us to go within and to work out, what am I not feeling? What am I not processing and alchemizing? So the hormones are doing that in a huge way, and they're there to remind us. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, that's the hormones saying, slow down. So we need to listen to those little cues, or they get stronger and stronger. Then all of a sudden you have hormonal acne on your face, and all the different things, which has been my journey. I had hormonal acne all over my face, and as soon as I started listening and slowing down, that's when everything started to clear, because I was listening to my body. And then when I resist and I push and I go into the shoulds, it would all come back. So yeah.
Thank you for that. It's such a beautiful reminder of, again, how it all connects to us being at peace, us being in flow. Listening, honoring is how it gets to be ease and grace, and we're fully capable of functioning. And when we're out of ease with life, dysfunction shows up. And I remember going through a deep trigger around a deep contract my little girl created to stay safe, was to create stuff with my skin or my body. And that's when it showed up huge for me. And you had shared with me some of your pictures of when you would experience that. And I was like, wow, really? Like, I would have never even known, again, because you're this shining, glowing light that's figured it out. And again, it comes up just to let us know what's really there. So I appreciate you bringing presence and just wisdom to that as well. So you teach so many aspects around this. It's such a beautiful gift. So if you guys definitely want to dive in deeper, like I said, Jodie has amazing guides, courses. She's got so many things that she's been able to create. And really, just because she's such a dear, dear friend of mine, was she willing to come and share in with us here. So Jodie, is there a place that if people are interested in, like, how do I dive into a course understanding my cycles or the different things that you have? Is there just we can obviously link it up, but you can give me anything that you want to share around that. And then we'll just make sure that the information is with this as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. The easiest way to find everything would be my website, which is jodie-louise.com, but we'll post a link below video. And there's, I've got a beautiful hormonal chart that I recommend that every woman, even every man, has actually. I would print it. I wish that every fridge had it printed out for women to check and cross-reference to when they're cooking or deciding whether to go out or whatever. So that would be definitely a first kind of point to begin, I would suggest. And anyone that wants to dive deeper, I have courses and many other things that are kind of in the works right now too, which I'm really excited to share. So well, thank you for your time, your effort, your energy, just your sacred wisdom, your sacred essence. I know, like, getting on with you, we're just like, beloved, I love you. Yeah. She's such a dear, sweet soul, and so wise, and such a master and a Jedi of life. You're all the experiences you've had and all that you've been through. You're such a gift, my love. And I just so appreciate you as a dear divine sister and one of my divine besties and allies, and all this information that you share and this teaching that you share that helps so many people. Because I know what I've learned from you made a big impact and really helped embody
and encode some understandings even more. So I'm just really grateful and honored that you would give us your time and your presence today. We'll definitely link up everything connected to you, and just really want to bring gratitude and appreciation for this space and for this wisdom, that we all can embrace it even more, to operate in our fullest alignment with our highest selves even more, and with each other even more, and so connected even more, and all that's available with that. So thank you, beloved.
Thank you so much.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you all. Sending you loves and kisses.